Ask Reddit. Bill Gates said, "I will always choose a lazy person to do a difficult job because a lazy person will find an easy way to do it." What's a real-life example of this?
I was working as a stock boy in a supermarket, and when we had to fill the milk cooler, people would bust open a 12-pack of milk cartons and put them in one by one. On my first day, I just placed the 12-pack in the cooler, cut the plastic off on one side with my box cutter, and yanked it from under it. The look of the store manager and the other employee who was training me was pure bewilderment. From that day, everyone did it my way.
Start of lockdown. My 9-year-old son was having worksheets emailed to complete at home. One day, I left him at the laptop doing his maths while I made some dinner with my 3-year-old daughter. I walked into the living room with his dinner to find him asking the Amazon Alexa all of his maths questions.
Worked as a laborer at a nursery one summer. Daily tasks included manually watering 15,000 plants each day. Put together a back-of-the-napkin plan to build an irrigation system, and spent the next few weeks building it with some money from the boss. That system is still running 15 years later and does all the work now. I did automate myself out of the job and had to find another eventually. A couple of years later, I got my engineering degree. I'm convinced engineers are inherently lazy people that will spend a disproportionate effort to make things easier.
My brother-in-law spent a whole summer trying to figure out how to fix his sagging deck at the lake, which he could, in theory, crawl under and jack it up. It would have been a tunneling project. It's a 60 by 60 area, all long 2 by 6 boards. Massive. I sat there long enough, with enough beers in me to come up with the idea of just cutting a square out of the sagging area about 3 feet by 3 feet, jacking it up, then re-screwing down the boards. He paints the thing every spring with a roller. Anyhow, so it's not like the square cut shows up. He thought I was a genius. I was just lazy.
We had to hold a thermometer in water and chemistry class. It probably was only a 20-minute experiment, but your arms get tired after a couple minutes, and you can't let the thermometer touch the bottom of the pan, or it won't get an accurate reading. So instead of sucking it up and just holding the thermometer, my lab partner built a contraption out of lab books and paper clips to somehow hold the thermometer in the water without it touching bottom. It was the stupidest looking thing you would ever see in a lab class, and our professor even walked over and said, "If it looks stupid, sounds stupid, but it works, then it isn't stupid." My lab partner and I joke that he wasn't talking about the contraption but the intellect of my lab partner.
I had a math teacher that actively encouraged his students to be as lazy as possible, defining lazy as actively searching for ways to do as minimal work as possible. His logic was that, the way math is now, it could always be simplified, and still work the same. Someone just needs to be lazy enough to find that. Be lazy.
I was a paid intern at a large company during one summer back home from college. My work 95% consisted of using SAP, importing to Excel, cleaning data, and generating reports, occasionally creating some tool someone needed. In the first 2 weeks after getting a hang of my responsibilities, writing all the Excel formulas needed, and basically automating 99% of my work, I was chilling. I went from actually working from 9 to 5 to maybe 1 hour tops a day, finding, importing, cleaning, and reporting. Usually took hours, but with all the formulas, it took 2 minutes of clicking. I then helped the other cool intern get his stuff set up so we could both just chill. We could take 2-hour lunches, paid for by the company, and nobody said anything because we were just getting so much more done than the other interns. Of course, I helped for special tasks when asked, but those were simple 20-minute tasks building something in Excel. Overall, it was the easiest and least stressful internship of my life.
The clerk was asked to bring 145 white papers into the office. He doesn't want to count the papers manually, so he printed 145 blank sheets and took them in.
One of my favorite examples is Andy Kim, and I'd like to preface this by saying that I don't think Kim is lazy so much as a genius. Andrew Yua Kim was a singer and songwriter who became famous under the stage name Andy Kim. He achieved success writing songs for bands like the Archies, possibly most notably, Sugar, Sugar. After his success, he coasted for a while until his record label dropped him for lack of output. At that point, he created his own label and cranked out hits like Rock Me Gently. When they saw this, the big record labels then bought his label under the assumption that they would then profit off of the songs he wrote and performed. He then very shortly stopped writing songs and largely lived off the sale of his label. Work smarter, not harder.
It took me like 3 months, but I automated a data pipeline to extract data, clean it up, and spit it out in an Excel or PDF format to one of our clients. I walked over to shoot the breeze with the lady who handles my client and gives me tasks, and she told me we make $40,000 off them every month for that automated job. Wow, I need to go start my own business.
When Carl Friedrich Gauss, the famous German mathematician and physicist, was in elementary school around 1784, his class was assigned the busy work task of adding all the numbers from 1 to 100, 1 plus 2, plus 3 plus 4, and so on. This usually kept the class quiet for half an hour or so. 7-year-old Carl was sitting quietly with the correct answer, 5,050, while the rest of the class was just starting. The surprised teacher asked him how he came up with the solution. He replied that he added 1 and 100 and got 101. Then he added 2 and 99 and got 101, 3 plus 98 equals 101, and so on. He realized there was a pattern of 50 pairs of numbers with each pair adding up to 101, and 50 times. 101 equals 5,050.
When I was in college, I had a job at an Italian fast food place with a reputation for its breadsticks. They came in frozen and needed a bit to thaw, so we'd take a giant 3x4-foot aluminum baking sheet, spread them out in a single layer with no spaces, and cover it with a plastic bag, then leave it sit in the walk-in overnight. The next day, you'd have to get a pair of tongs and move each stick to a new tray, turning them over, then cover the new tray with the bag, and let them sit on racks for a couple of hours before brushing on the garlic butter sauce. This was tedious enough that you'd usually be ready to brush the butter on the first tray as soon as you turned the last tray. I was given this task for the first time one morning, and just did not want to deal with it. I realized if I put the second tray upside down on top of the first one, then turned it over and took the first tray out, I got exactly the same results. It blew the boss's mind when I did the 3-hour job in about 15 minutes. I was given a 5-cent per hour raise.
I was once set to test a certain piece of equipment on a ship. The test involved attaching the unit to a reader, then running loads of command line commands. Then one would have to make a copy of all the text, copy it into Word, and save it as a report that looked quite poor. There were hundreds of units, and they needed to be tested several times a year. We did about 20 to 30 a day. It would take several weeks to finish. I didn't know coding at the time, but always wanted to learn it. Within 2 months, I had made a program, even with a graphical user interface, to spot faults with ease, instead of having to actually read the reports. The program could read 3 units at a time, and would automatically create a smooth PDF report and save it on our server, named with the serial number and date. The job was now to attach 3 units, then wait for about 3 minutes, detach and attach new ones. Basically 30 seconds of work, 3 minutes of break. I could now test all units in a day, though I would typically spread it out over a couple more days. When I left the company, I left the program on the test computer. I got an email from an ex-colleague a few months later saying they were using the program on several ships now. There wasn't any manual for the program, of course, but it was so straightforward that it wasn't needed.
If I need directions, I'm not asking a man with 1 tooth. I'm asking a man with 1 leg, because he definitely knows the easiest way to get there. Yup, if there's a shortcut, that 1-legged person knows where it is. You won't be hopping fences neither.
I plug clocks in at midnight so they are already set.
Eating dinner out of the pot, so there are fewer dishes to wash.
An older company had a person dedicated to data entry, which boiled down to copying and pasting portions of data from text files into spreadsheets and formatting into a report. The person originally doing this job spent a full 40+ hours each week doing it, but was not very computer literate. When they retired, the company hired someone with actual skills. The new hire convinced management to let her work remotely after getting up to speed on the job. The first week at home was spent automating the entire job. The remainder of her multi-year tenure with the company was spent doing whatever she wanted, save the 10 to 15 minutes weekly to run her program and to answer the odd email here and there, all while getting paid full salary and benefits. She actually had to add in a few errors now and then to make it seem realistic.
Worked in a local adult education center. One of my main tasks was to make calculations about how many people enlisted for a course, how many of them got discounts, such as unemployed individuals, how many men and women there were, and their ages. That was needed to calculate upcoming course fees and other related matters. That was my only work there, and I hated it. This was in the early 90s, so personal computers were a thing in our offices, but I had no idea how to write a program or use a database to utilize this information. Lucky as I was, our center had an interesting policy. When you wanted to educate yourself, you could attend that class for free. And when it was during work time, then this was work time. As long as my supervisor was okay with that. She was. So I spent 3 months studying database structures, scripting, coding, and so on. I told my tutor what I wanted to do, and he helped me to write a script that grabbed all necessary information from the course database, copied that into another database, and then I went crazy and wrote code that was insane. I implemented what-if scenarios thanks to filters. At the end, I was able to do my work, which needed 6 hours a day within 15 minutes. I mean, before that, it took, for example, an hour to have all the necessary information to determine how many unemployed single-parent women were needed to make the costs of that course even. I had everything back then. Now you wanted statistics on how many single-parent disabled foreign women at the age of 80 to 90 were needed for the next 2 years to keep the ornithology course running? Sure, no problem. Clickety-click, done. After that, I started the personal computer in the morning, grabbed all the data, ran my script, was done within 15 minutes, and then read the book I brought from home. At the end of the day, I gave my supervisor several dozens of papers, statistics, predictions, and so on, and said, "That was a lot of work," and went home. My supervisor was super happy with me because I did so much more now and was super effective.
I worked goods in for an aircraft manufacturer as a summer job at university. Parts would arrive. We would open them and key in all the details into a terminal. That bit was long-winded. I discovered the terminal keyboard has assignable shortcuts and set up a bunch of them for all the boilerplate such that keying in an item was about 6 keystrokes. Saved myself and my workmate hours every day, which we would spend pranking each other, other warehouse staff and staff at other sites.
I had a manager in my 20s who detested the fact I turned a 2-hour process into a 15-minute process. It exposed how much lazier he was compared to me, because when the higher-ups learned from other people at my level that I created the program, they took me aside and told me he took credit for it. They asked me how I felt about that. I told them what decisions they make regarding the manager's character is their decision. Just put yourselves in my shoes and consider it from that angle. They did nothing, and I took the concept to a competitor who invested the money into making the program more robust and proprietary. My name was line 1 on the patent and trademark documents, and I did well enough to semi-retire at 45. I credit Lee Iacocca for the inspiration. He went through a similar problem with higher-ups at Ford, and his answer was to take his brain to Chrysler, who would value it.
Back in high school, a lot of kids used to walk through his park to get home or to school. A portion of the path went into the woods because it was just quicker than walking the actual trail. At one point in the walk through the woods, you had to go up this small but tedious hill. Nothing major, but it took like 10 seconds of hard work to go up it. You couldn't go around because one side was a small cliff to the creek below, and the other side had dense trees. One summer, a bunch of us got together and decided to just dig through that hill to make it flat. It took like 14 of us 3 good days to get through it. It was a hard 3 days, but it was definitely worth it. Saved 10 seconds of hill climbing every morning and afternoon, 150 plus days of the year. And it wasn't just us, but hundreds of other kids who took the same path every day. Sometimes you need to put in a lot of work, so your future selves can enjoy the easy way out.
I was invited to my friend's yearly apple picking. It was a full day of apples and kids and filling a truck for cider. I'm lazy and suggested we make the process more efficient with tarps on the ground. We managed in 2 hours what historically took all day. We didn't even get to the picnic lunch. Essentially, I ruined apple picking.
Walkie-talkies. In every job I have ever had, these things make your day far less labor-intensive if used correctly.
Hopefully this hasn't been posted yet. Basically, in order to restart a server, they made a robot that would eject its CD tray every time it couldn't ping it.
In Australia, explorers discovered a mountain that was taller than Mount Kosciuszko, which was thought to be the tallest mountain in Australia. Rather than cause confusion by telling everyone a new tallest mountain had been found, they simply named the new mountain Mount Kosciuszko and renamed the original to something else.
Sounds like Hanlon's razor. The German general Kurt von Hammerstein-Equord used Hanlon's razor to assess his men, saying, "I divide my officers into 4 groups. There are clever, diligent, stupid, and lazy officers. Usually 2 characteristics are combined. Some are clever and diligent. Their place is the general staff. The next lot are stupid and lazy. They make up 90% of every army and are suited to routine duties. Anyone who is both clever and lazy is qualified for the highest leadership duties, because he possesses the intellectual clarity and the composure necessary for difficult decisions. One must beware of anyone who is stupid and diligent. He must not be entrusted with any responsibility because he will always cause only mischief."
I have a massive exercise to do at our year-end in accountancy. My work previously got checked by another manager who spent over 3 weeks going over the data. Eventually, she got shifted to another department, and that workload fell on me. Basically self-audit and then present the data to the actual auditors. My previous manager was absolutely terrible at Excel. I didn't let on, but I did all the audit on a separate file using simple but out-of-the-way formulas. Not only did I reduce the task from 3 weeks to basically real-time checks with no time, but when I was told that I have to perform that exercise every month, my job became a dawdle. I didn't let on that everything was automated by SumIfS, indexing, maximum values, and range checks. Living the dream. Sorry if I rambled on.
At work, I go through parts and apply 2 different kinds of tape and 2 different kinds of weave. I have finally got the rhythm down, and now I do each part individually and apply everything at once. Everyone else goes through an entire order, just applying tape, then goes through it again to do the weave. I ask to use the big table in the back of the shop and just put all the tape and weave tools there, and do the parts, all at once. The normal rate for an 8-hour shift is 1,200, but I can manage 1,800 in a day going at a nice steady pace. I can get 1,800 going at a steady pace. I've done it before, but I usually don't. Most days I go slow and relax, purposely only making 1,300 to 1,350 or so parts. It's just enough over rate to get my incentive bonus. And thanks to being a hard and fast worker, the uppers leave me alone at my big table in the back. They look the other way when I have an earbud in one ear and they don't notice that I scroll Reddit or read a lot. I can't say what products we make. They're too recognizable, and Googling it would reveal where I work and live.
I knew a guy who had a low-level data and reporting job. He had several daily and weekly work responsibilities, including a bunch of reports that needed quite a bit of tweaking from raw data to finished product. But like I said, low level. We didn't find out until way later, but he had set up macros for each of his major responsibilities where he could. Once set up, he'd just run the macros to do his work, but then he'd smartly hold off on delivering the reports until just a little before the deadlines. He'd hit every assignment and was seen as reliable. He also would complain about the workload so people would leave him with that work. I doubt he did a full hour of work a day after he set up what he did. Eventually, he left the job for one with better pay. But damn did he work lazy. Also, he was smart not to reveal until the end, because had he told them about it, he would have gotten a pat on the back and would have been given a whole other workload on top of maintaining those macros. Dude milked the job, not the other way around.
One of my favorite stories from my youth was the tale of the man who was too lazy to fail. I got fed up with handwriting itemized suborders at work, so I set up a spreadsheet that you can just fill out. Then I got tired of having more than one program open and not being able to search within and among those order sheets, at least not automatically or easily. So I'm having our FileMaker guy integrated into our greater ordering and invoicing system. I was frustrated at the pointlessness of sorting a giant pile of paper invoices from an unpaid stack to a paid stack every month, so I just used the accounting software to keep track. I became so irritated with having to fill out a multi-page printed spreadsheet for every single order, sometimes just one item, 2 pages in, and frequently, there would be those pesky itemized suborders that I condensed the items into most used, put them all on one easy-to-read sheet, and encouraged my coworker to simply write out the more uncommon items at the bottom. Basically, I hate busy work, and paper invariably leads to busy work. I have tried to reduce the use of paper in our office, but have not been entirely successful. We have to have written order forms available because sometimes the orders are coming in too fast to be able to type it all quickly and correctly, and have to keep some paper records for things like Organic, Food and Drug Administration, and United States Department of Agriculture audits. But all in all, I'd say my absolute hatred of filing has reduced busy work here by at least half.
Me, I automate things all the time at work to make daily routine jobs easier. I write manuals with screenshots and arrows indicating where to click or where to fill in what. Whenever I write a manual, I assume that whoever reads it is a complete idiot, so that whenever customers call for the same questions again, I just send them to the online manual I created. No need to type it out again by email or explain it again by phone.
Does Alexander and the Gordian knot count? A complex knot that, according to prophecy, was to be undone only by the person who was to rule Asia, and that was cut, rather than untied, by Alexander the Great.
My boss put my name in for leading a project group shortly after I joined the company. I had no experience whatsoever about project managing, yet he still demanded that I lead the group of 12 people. All way smarter guys, with technical backgrounds, and with way more time at the company. I'm a business person who's too dumb for balance sheets. That's why I'm in human resources and because I quite like the field the most. So we started the first meeting. I asked for everyone's plan, experience, and ideas, gathered the different pros and cons, cross-checked with the budget we had, put on a time frame with milestones to reach around 6 months, and involved valuable people to consult at different steps. Why did I do that? Because I like organizing stuff, keeping everyone on the same page, and delegating to-dos. I got promoted because of the success of the project. I asked my boss why he put me in for it since I had never done anything like that. He said because I complained in the first week that most of the work had a way too wonky structure, no clear guidelines, and this could be improved heavily if we just took some time into it. And because I hated talking to others if I had questions, and I wouldn't get a clear answer. For example, if I asked 10 people the same question, I would get 15 different answers. In the long run, this would make us way more efficient and keep everyone on the same page. All because I hated disorganized work.
Years ago as a student, I got a job stocking shelves. Guys were carrying the heavy boxes, putting them on the floor and bending each time to pick up the items to put on the shelves. I was maybe a light 100 pounds, and carrying the boxes was just killing me physically. So one day I had an idea. I put the box on an old desk chair and rolled it around. No more carrying and no more bending. The funny thing is that instead of doing the same thing, most of the guys called me lazy and kept carrying the heavy boxes, just to prove how strong they were. Now they have special rolling carts to do the job.
The entire miscellaneous kitchen tools section at bed, bath, and beyond. I don't need an avocado slicer or a lemon squeezer or an automatic chopper or dicer, but lazy old me definitely puts them to good use.
My brother gave my oldest nephew $10 a week if he did all his chores without needing to be told or complaining. One day he gets home early from work and sees the neighbor kid tossing a bag in the trash. He asks him what he is doing, and the kid says he gets $5 a week to take care of a few chores. My nephew outsourced his chores.
Well, I worked in a graphics design studio as an intern. They mostly had me practice and do some basic stuff. Their head designers were too busy to do. One was a real estate advertisement. It had a few basic templates, but it was all kinds of scatterbrained. I would spend 5 to 10 minutes trying to find the right layer for all the pictures, and had to mess with way too much. So I made copies of the files and made one for each template. I labeled everything and made it so the images on top of each other wouldn't clip into the lower ones like the previous did. You could be in and out of the template in 2 to 3 minutes. I showed my boss the difference, and he had this face of, well, shit. He said the next day that if I was a graduate, he'd hire me because I was better than the people sending applications in. In short, I made an overly complicated and unorganized thing the opposite, and my boss was actually sad he couldn't hire me.
I had to carry groceries into the house when I was a kid. I didn't want to make multiple trips, so I tied several bags to the belt loops on my pants to do it in one trip.
I'm doing it right now, automated data cleaning in Python. My coworkers don't know about it, so something that takes me 10 minutes at most takes them 2 hours. For everyone who says I should share my code, I have. I even set up a private GitHub space for my team. Some have taken it up, but others, including management, do not like it. I think they feel a little threatened.
A few years back, my sister was doing some hardware testing and validation. She was working with a bunch of Excel tables. When she found out that I was doing some automatic Excel file creation and editing for my job, she had me create a script for her job. 2 to 3 days of eye-killing boring work, done in 20 seconds. She kept it a secret for a while. The worst task became the best task. She eventually shared it with the company as there were many others that did a similar job, and then she got promoted. In conclusion, her laziness helped with her promotion.
Thank you for listening. Remember to subscribe to Monumental Stories for new videos every day.